Hi, everybody. Welcome. We will get started in a few minutes, give people a chance to jump on and join us. Thanks for being here today. Happy March. Happy International Women's Day. And let me go ahead and turn on the chat as well so that you all can say hello to each other. All right, so the chat is on. And you all should be able to say hi to each other. All right, so we will go ahead and just dive right in. So hi, everyone. Again, thank you so much for being here. For our webinar, this will be our second webinar this year for our Colorado Safe Routes to School webinar series. And today we're talking all about partnering with school districts on Safe Routes to School projects. This is a topic that I know a lot of you all are interested in. Partnering with school districts can be really beneficial, but also tricky sometimes. Just trying to figure out, who to talk to and what those partnerships look like. So we hope that the session today will give you some new ideas and strategies for what that can look like. And we have a great team from Durango, Colorado, who will talk a bit about their Safe Routes to School and school district partnership. So we'll have a nice feature for our webinar today. So yeah, it should be a good session. So for those of you who might be joining us for the first time or new to Safe Routes Partnership, we are a national organization. Our mission is to advance safe walking and rolling to schools and everyday destinations and improving the health and well-being of people of all races, income levels, and abilities. So that's a little bit about us. So hello to the newcomers yeah, welcome back to those of you who have joined us before. So my name is Corey Johnson. I'm a program and engagement manager here at Safe Routes Partnership, and I lead these Colorado Safe Routes to School webinar sessions. And I'm also joined by Devin King, who's the multimodal administrator for City of Durango's Transportation Department. And we'll also have Kathy Morris, who's the Director of Safety and School Safety and Security for Durango 9R School District. So that's our Durango team that will be on today. And as far as this webinar, we are recording it. So if you miss anything, there will be a recording available after the webinar. We'll also send out a survey so you can let us know how it is that how we're doing with our webinars, along with a list of resources that we mentioned today. The Q&A box is open if you have any questions. Feel free to drop those in the Q&A box. We'll have time at the end to answer questions. We'll also have the chat box open, and it seems like a lot of you are already jumping in and saying where you're from, where you're joining us from. So thank you so much for that. And if anybody wants to share, their connection to Safe Routes to School, you're welcome to drop that in the chat box as well. Any logistical questions before we move on? And I saw a question in the Q&A box about recording. Yes, we're recording the presentation and it'll be available. It will be available through a YouTube link that I will send out after the session. All righty. So we will go ahead and get started. So we always like to start out with kind of like a poll question to get a sense of, who's in our audience and some of your experiences with the topics that we're talking about. So I'm curious to hear from you all about how involved your school district is and with your Safe Routes to School program. So go ahead and launch this poll. So we have the range of no involvement to somewhat involved to very involved. So you just want to get a sense of what district partnerships have looked like on your end as far as Safe Routes to School. And I'll give it another 20 seconds or so to get your answer in. Another 10 seconds. So how involved is your school district with Safe Routes to School programs? Final answers in. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and end the poll. And so it looks like a mix. We have a bunch of people who just have no involvement, some people who have, their school districts are somewhat involved, then a handful of districts that are very involved. Yeah, a bit of a range here. And so actually to follow up on the poll, I'm curious for those of you who do have school districts who are involved, whether they're involved a little bit or very involved. I'm just curious if you can put in the chat like what that school district involvement has looked like. So for those of you who, yeah, have some school district involvement, what does that look like in the past? What does it look like now? If you want to drop any examples in the chat, I'd love to hear a bit about, yeah, what's happening on the ground with school district involvement. So I'll give you all a minute to add things in the chat if you would like to do so. So if you have a school district that's been involved, what has that looked like? Do they support safe routes to school activities? I see somebody mentioned town meetings, presentations to teachers. Do they come out to events? Do you have a safe routes to school policy? I see Scott says they created a Vision Zero travel safety plan. Yeah, great. So any other examples of school district involvement, please drop them in the chat. It's a great opportunity for us to get some other resources and examples of what's happening. So yeah, please feel free to continue sharing those. And Michelle is on to kind of take a peek at the chat too, and keep that conversation going. All right, and so my follow-up poll question is, obviously there are a lot of barriers to partnering with school districts, and so I'm curious what some of those barriers have been. Let me go back and I will launch our second poll. So what have been your biggest barriers to partnering with school districts? Is it just lack of interest? Does your district actively oppose safe routes to school? Not sure where to start or who to reach out to? Not enough time to develop the partnership? Obviously time is at a premium right now, so it could just be that there's not enough time to do all of this. Or is there too much red tape or bureaucracy and sometimes it seems like it's not worth the hassle, or something else completely different? You can also put that in the chat box as well. But yeah, I'm curious to hear from you all if there are any barriers you've found to partnering with school districts and what they are. And hopefully we can address some of them today. I see somebody put in the chat lack of funding. Funding's always a big one. I'll keep this poll open for about 10 more seconds before we move on. Staff shortages, high turnover rate and funding, no time to commit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end our poll and share these results. Yeah, and so again, a mixed bag of, lack of interest, not sure who to reach out to, just not enough time. I think that staff turnover or limited staff capacity is something that we're seeing all across the country. So you're not alone if those are your challenges. Yeah, so I think that, working with school districts can present challenges and there are some barriers, but it can certainly be done. And we hope that, yeah, our session today kind of gives you all some new ideas as far as how to start these partnerships and reduce some of the barriers to developing them. So again, we always in these webinars go back to our Colorado Community Engagement Toolkit. And one of the parts of this framework is about partnering with other organizations, or in this case, school districts, to help build those community relationships and strengthen your program. So we hope that you can kind of get some partnership ideas from what we'll be talking about today. And so when you think about partnering with school districts and how that can be beneficial, why that's important, we know that these partnerships can help show the importance of safe routes to school to the larger community, can increase program buy-in with individual schools, can influence plans and policies. So there are some people who work with their school district to put together a safe routes to school plan or incorporate safe routes to school into a district wellness policy, for example. You can actually help co-develop transportation solutions, so it doesn't just have to live with the district transportation department. You can kind of, be a voice in that process. Also streamlining messaging around transportation choices, around encouraging students to walk and roll to school. It can also help increase resources, whether that's staff, materials, equipment, communications. So as with any other partner, a school district is just another partner who can help strengthen and enhance your program if you can kind of find, ways to align your priorities. So a few examples of what these types of partnerships can look like. And again, there are also some great examples in the chat as well. It can be anything from, developing a district wellness policy, having school district, staff serve on transportation advisory boards, developing bike education curriculum. So there are some school districts that might fund bike equipment or other materials, creating cross promotional materials. So if there, is a walk and roll to school day event or some other sort of walking and rolling initiative, having that, come from the district, just again, to kind of increase that overall support, or even things like shared use agreements, being able to, use school facilities for walking and rolling programs. So again, these partnerships can look like whatever you need them to look like, depending on, what the needs are of your community and how your school district, functions. And really thinking about how you kind of start making those inroads with school districts. I think that's why it's important to think about what your ask is. Is it just general support for safe routes to school, specific resources? Are you looking to develop a safe routes to school policy and want some guidance and engagement on what that looks like? Is it communication support? So having a district staff member from the comms team come out to document a walk and roll to school day, or put information out in a newsletter? Is it curriculum development, thinking about, the PE curriculum and incorporating bike education or pet education? Or is it guidance and authorization, around allowing students to walk and roll to school, or skateboard to school, or use scooters to go to school? So so what's your ask? What are you looking for in this partnership? And then as far as like knowing who is who and, where to go to, again, each school district is different. So I'd encourage you to research what school districts looks like, in your community, and then figuring out, okay, who are those people who I can reach out to? Is it the superintendent's office? Is it transportation services? Is there a wellness coordinator? Is it the comms team? Is there a PE department? I know here in DC, the main person I talk to at the district is actually the head of the PE department. That's my main contact there. And it works, it's great. The safety and security department, facilities management, is there an equity and inclusion team or department? So kind of figuring out like how your district works and who the main players are is really important part of this process, because it helps you kind of figure out, who to go to. And then of course you always want to make sure that you always want to make sure that you can make your case and, align your ask with some other sort of district priority. So it's important to figure out like, what does your school district care about? And to be honest, it might not be safe routes to school. It might be something else. It could be, health and wellness in general, or, equity and inclusion, or, increasing, college and career readiness, or general academic readiness and achievement. So you can find out what those priorities are, and then figure out how safe routes to school can align with those priorities. And that can include things like, providing evidence that safe routes to school works, showing support from, other community members, parents, caregivers, students, school staff, showing examples from other communities, even inviting, a school district staff member to an upcoming event or a project that you're putting on. And of course, not being afraid to start small. You don't have to go to a school district and have, this large ask. It can be something small, whether that's, again, coming to an event, or just starting out with the conversation. But again, all this really depend on how your district works and what their priorities are. And finding out what those priorities are is a good way to help you start figuring out how to frame your ask and develop those relationships, and even figuring out like who it is to talk to. If your main focus is, if your district focuses on, there's a big health and wellness initiative, you might want to go to the district wellness coordinator to talk about safe routes to school. So yeah, doing that research is a really important part of this process. And just thinking about, different ways that safe routes to school can be a solution to some of these issues that a district might be facing. Safe routes to school can be a solution to high transportation cost or bus shortage. I know that in my where I went to school in Maryland, where they're actually expanding the school walk zone because there's to cut down on transportation costs and because there's a bus driver shortage, there'll be students who used to take a bus who are now walking to school. So, how could safe routes to school be a solution to some of those concerns that parents have about their students walking and rolling when they used to be on the bus route? Things like car congestion, lack of student physical activity, even mental health struggles. Safe routes to school kind of gives kids the chance to, be out and about with their, friends and peers walking, rolling to school. So how can, safe routes to school be a solution to that? Tardiness, absenteeism, or even poor or inadequate infrastructure. Presenting safe routes to school infrastructure projects, to a district could also be a way to offer some solutions that can really help out your community. And of course, we talked about some of the barriers. Again, we put those in the chat, so I won't go over them too much, but we do know that there are ways to address those barriers and really get involved. So I'd say, look for some of those opportunities, some of that low-hanging fruit where you could possibly get involved in things that the district is doing, where there might be some alignment with safe routes to school. Whether that's, conversations around redistricting, school consolidations and closures, which we're seeing a lot, in a lot of communities, just schools, consolidating or closing. So our students are kind of moving around to different schools. How could safe routes to school be a part of that conversation? Also, new school openings, new schools and school siting, kind of being a voice to, give some guidance or offer ideas around ways to make some of these newer schools, more walkable and rollable, and supporting safe routes to school programs, on those campuses. Responding to traffic safety incidents that involve students. Obviously we don't want to, wait till something, tragic happens, but that's also an opportunity to kind of, bring up, student travel, transportation safety, awareness, and letting people know that this is actually a really important topic that impacts students and families. So if there are opportunities to, kind of get involved in those incidents. Vision Zero initiatives, I saw a few people put in the chat box there, kind of partnering with their school district on Vision Zero. That's another great way to get involved. And even curriculum planning, like I mentioned before with the PE department, are there ways to, incorporate some of that bike and pedestrian education into, curriculum planning for, PE or health, or even other subjects that you might not even think would be aligned with safe routes to school. So opportunities are there. And of course, you also have the opportunity to kind of bring others along with you, whether that's parents and caregivers, students, school staff, community partners, crossing guards, bus drivers, whether you're all working together to, to attend a meeting or a town hall, or whether you're, kind of representing, a school community. I think being able to kind of like show that larger school support for safe routes to school programs could be another great way to help get districts, the school district on board with what it is that you're trying to do, showing this is something that like people actually want and that's actually, helpful for a school community. And there's just a few examples of what district partnerships can look like. So, we'll have another great Colorado example in a few minutes, but we also have some examples from Boulder and St. Vrain and St. Vrain and Center, Colorado. So these are examples that are happening, across the state. So, partnerships with safe routes to school projects in Boulder. St. Vrain has their district wellness coordinator, kind of thinking about what that safe routes to school integration can look like on a health and wellness level. And then Town of Center, the community that we featured last fall, they have safe routes to school added to their school district wellness policy. So again, these are all different examples of what a partnership with a school district can look like. It really depends on, your district and what people care about and what makes the most sense when you kind of start thinking about developing that partnership. So here in DC, we have a district bike bike education program. So our school district, helps run this program, supports this program. All of our second graders receive bike education as a part of their PE class, and this is coordinated by the district's PE director. So again, that's my main contact at the district, and this is a really, successful program here in DC, and one that people really like. And so that's been a really great partnership between, transportation and active transportation and safe routes to school and the local school district here in DC. In Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina, their school district, CMS, they support their Safe Routes to School program and sit on a Safe Routes to School Safety Zone Committee, where they provide input on safety projects and other Safe Routes to School initiatives. So that's kind of like a cool setup with the school district, the Safe Routes to School coordinator, and then their transportation department sitting on one committee to talk about Safe Routes to School. And that's been a longstanding partnership that's been going on, in the Charlotte area for quite a while now. And then also here, right outside of DC in Montgomery County, their school district, staff members will come out to document Walk and Roll to School Day and create these really, cool promotional videos. They support, Walking Wednesday programs and student contests on the school district website. So again, another way to partner with the school district could be on some of those, communications and, and marketing things that that you might not have the capacity to do as an individual Safe Routes to School coordinator. And then lastly, my colleague sent me this really cool example a few weeks ago, and I haven't really dived into it a whole lot, but I thought it was interesting. So Albuquerque Public Schools, their district runs a Vision Zero task force that's actually a part of their capital master plan. And it's basically a team of people, district employees, teachers, administrators, local agencies, and community members who are all a part of guiding this, larger school district vision for a youth initiative around Vision Zero, which will tackle things like traffic safety curriculum. There's a Vision Zero action plan and a traffic safety awareness campaign. So this is one of the only examples I've seen of a school district having their own Vision Zero task force. But again, if this is something that, if you're a Vision Zero community and if you have some district, involvement, if you really want to think about how Vision Zero impacts young people, this could also be a great partnership opportunity. So developing some sort of, Vision Zero task force or incorporating Vision Zero into your Safe Routes to School task force. And again, I think that you all kind of put some other examples of district partnerships in the chat. So I'll just take a moment and see if there's anything else before we move on to Durango. Let's see, I saw somebody else mention Safe Routes to School as a climate solution. Yes, we're seeing climate and climate justice increasingly becoming a part of Safe Routes to School and also school district priorities. Just kind of thinking about, green schools and green transportation. So climate will be a big one moving forward. And somebody else again asked about the presentation. Yes, we'll share out all the slides and we're recording this. You'll get everything in a follow-up email from me after the presentation. Somebody else mentioned working with tribal representatives to incorporate complete streets and Safe Routes to School elements. Yes, absolutely. I think that can be included in school district partnerships or just partnerships in general. And if anybody has examples of what that looks like, we'd also love to hear those. All right, so I'm going to hand things over to Devin and Kathy, who will talk about what their district partnerships look like in Durango, Colorado. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Devin, you should be able to share yours.
All right.
And I'll hand it over to you all. So Devin and Kathy have, been very generous with giving their time to talk a bit about what's happening in Safe Routes to School Durango. I will hand it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. And just to make sure you're seeing the slide deck and not the page with notes and etc.
Yep, I'm seeing the slide deck.
Awesome. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. We're excited to kind of present what the city of Durango has more recently been doing. But it's funny always watching these webinars and seeing what everybody else is doing. And so being on this end is different and interesting. So hopefully we provide you all with some helpful information and you benefit from what we can talk about. So my name is Devin King. I am the multimodal administrator for the city of Durango. I've been in this position for about just a couple years. Fortunately, I came on after the program had been built up by some great folks in the past. So I kind of got handed a program that had already been started and had been well established. And then Kathy Morris, who is also on today, she is the director of safety and security for the Durango 9R school district. And she has been part of this program pretty much since the beginning. So just wanted to run through a little bit of context for Durango for anybody that isn't familiar. So we're located in Southwest Colorado. It's a pretty rural area of Colorado. We're definitely far away from Denver. Denver's about 6.5 hours away. Albuquerque is about 3.5. So we're kind of secluded over here. And our population is around 19,000. However, Durango acts as the regional hub for this area. So our population swells to about 40,000 during the daytime when everybody's here working, or especially during the summertime when it's visitor season. A lot of folks are in town checking out all the recreation opportunities we have. And then the county which Durango sits in is about 55,000. So just to give a little perspective there. And then our school district is Durango 9R. We also have 2 charter schools in town, which we do some work with. And then, you know, topography wise, which I think is beneficial to understand, this year has been a great snow season. Some years are different, but we're located in the foothills of the San Juan Mountains, so we can have really big snow years like this year where, you know, we still have snow on the ground. It's starting to melt now with the spring thaw. But we also have a lot of hills. And so, you know, that can present its own challenges for students biking, walking, etc. to school. And kind of one photo I showed over here, Durango is bisected by both the Animas River and US Highway 550. So US Highway 550, you know, has ADT of 35,000, especially during the July peak summertime. So those present a couple of challenges because we have schools on both sides of the river and the highway, and, you know, a lot of neighborhoods and housing on each side. So those are specific challenges to Durango and where we sit. However, because of all the outdoor recreation opportunities we do have a really strong bike culture, and that translates also into, we have a lot of students who bike to school. And so this is just a quick highlight of Durango 9R school district. So they serve most of La Plata County. La Plata County fits into this shape right here. So we do have the Southern Ute Reservation, which is outside, and then Bayfield as well, which has its own school district. But as you can see, this is a pretty large area. Durango is right here in the middle. As far as schools in city limits, we have 3 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools. But as you can imagine, since we have this large area that funnels into Durango 9R, a lot of the students that go to the middle schools and high schools may be traveling a fair distance to get into school. So Safe Routes to Programs, like I said, the program has been established for quite a while by my predecessors. But pretty much throughout the whole thing, you know, we've shared responsibilities, but it's mainly been managed by the city's multimodal division, which was created around the same time that the program really took off. We had some infrastructure projects in 2007, but for the most part, the program really started in 2009. And, you know, through the years, it's been a pretty consistent program with both infrastructure and non-infrastructure initiatives. Most of the programming, especially infrastructure wise, is funded by grant opportunities. But we've also had some non-infrastructure grants that have promoted the different programs that we've ran in partnership with Durango 9R and the city. You know, it's not necessarily unique, but one benefit the city of Durango has is the Multimodal Advisory Board. And with that board makeup, we do have Durango 9R representation. So Kathy Morris is a representative on the Multimodal Advisory Board, which has helped keep that conversation and that partnership going throughout the years. And that multimodal advisory board also helps prioritize projects. So the city does have what is called the 2015 half-cent sales and use tax, which is dedicated to parks and recreation, but also multimodal capital improvement projects. So that board, along with the Durango 9R representation on that board, helps prioritize infrastructure projects that are focused on multimodal and traffic safety specifically. So just wanted to provide a quick overview of Safe Routes to School projects and programs over the years. This is not an all-encompassing list, but just trying to kind of show the picture of what's been going on. So most of our projects, like I mentioned, are partially funded by Safe Routes to School infrastructure grants, TAP grants, and local funding. So the local funding piece is usually the 2015 half-cent sales and use tax. One of the earlier projects was Park Elementary, so that one involved traffic calming features, including improving bus drop-off, as well as curb extensions and crossings. A more recent project is the Needham Connect, and that one included, again, traffic calming features, curb extensions, as well as some signage. And both of those projects were heavily coordinated with the schools, as well as with support from the schools and the school district itself. A recent project is the Safe Routes to School signage project, which I'll go into a little more depth here in just a little bit. So as far as non-infrastructure, most of those, again, programs were mainly funded by Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure grants. But with those, we've done things in the past like walk and roll-a-thons, which have looked anything from a day program to a full week where we interact with some of the elementaries in town. We've also had walk audits, and that's a little more recent, and bike rodeos. And originally bike rodeos, were a part of the walk and roll-a-thons and I guess part of the bigger programming. And now actually our police department works with the elementaries to conduct a lot of those bike rodeos and works with them regularly to coordinate those. Kathy, do you have anything to add on any of that so far?
Yeah, thank you, Devin. So our school resource officers, which is our law enforcement partners, really have stepped up. They started a program called Safety Town, which was way before 2007. So it was a really nice segue into the Safe Routes to School to incorporate some of that into that Safety Town summer program for kiddos on how to navigate our streets and around the schools and even in their neighborhoods. So I will tell you that we are in a rural part of Colorado, as Devin has explained to you. And so our sidewalks, pretty narrow. We didn't have any curb cuts to speak of, really, to allow bikes on and off, crosswalks and fairways. So the city's partnership with the school has been tremendous, not only for the safety of our kiddos, but our families too. We have families now biking and walking to school with kids, which is, a really great thing to see in a small community, but it really encourages the whole community to come out and support education, but also the safety of our traffic and the different multimodal ways to get from point A to point B, if you will. So while you hear this is Safe Routes to Schools, these smaller communities, that all these folks are out and about, not just going to school, but maybe going on field trips or to the park. And so it really helps the whole community. I just can't stress that enough. It may seem daunting to try to pull these folks in to help you with your program, but when it's about kids, everybody seems to show up. So this is I can't talk enough about how great this program is. Thank you, Devin.
Thanks, Kathy. So as far as partners over the years, this list is not completely comprehensive, but just kind of wanted to highlight some of the partners that we've worked with. So obviously Durango 9R, Mercy Regional Medical Center, which has been a great partner. They have a program called Gray Matters, where they distribute helmets, and they've worked with us quite a bit over the years. CDOT has been a partner as well, the Region 5 down here. Healthy Lifestyle Applauded, which is an organization that is no longer around, but they were a heavy part in the early stages. San Juan Basin Public Health, who is our health agency, has been a good partner over the years. Durango Trails, which is a trails nonprofit, they do a lot of reconstruction and advocacy work. They've partnered as well over the years. Durango Devo, which is a mountain bike organization that promotes and does programs with youth. And obviously the Durango Police Department and Fire Protection District. A new partner that has kind of established themselves has been the Rotary Club, which we'll kind of touch on here in a little bit. The Business Improvement District has also, to kind of Kathy's point, Safe Routes to School benefits everybody. So thanks for bringing that up, Kathy. That's a really good point. So even our Business Improvement District, I think, has seen, the benefits that, oh yeah, this helps students, but this also helps our business district and helps, our economic vitality in this region. So they've stepped up and been a partner in more recent years. Charter schools and then children's doctor offices have also been great partners for us. So just kind of wanted to highlight some of the unique partnerships to maybe spur some ideas and thoughts. So like I mentioned earlier, the Safe Routes to School signage project, which was a more recent project that we just finished up. So again, partners for that one, elementary schools. So pretty much all the signage that went up and occurred were around 3 elementary schools. However, I will note that Durango's not that big. So some of the signage also benefits, some of the middle schools and surrounding area as well. Durango 9R, the administration was helpful as well. San Juan Basin Public Health, again, helped partner with this. Pediatric Partners of the Southwest, which is a large children's medical facility, was a partner. And then of course the city of Durango all kind of helped to get this grant funding and then to really implement the grant in different ways. So some of the partnerships, kind of looked at just, they were promoting as well as providing letters of support, advertisement and other things like that. So, not all the partners have to be, at the lead and at the forefront of it, but just having that community backing can be really important, as Corey pointed out earlier in her presentation. So what this did is it installed signage. That signage include, I have a picture here of rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So those are the ones that you push the button and then they start to flash. These are becoming pretty popular down here in Southwest Colorado as well as in Durango. It included, other signage, school zone signage, as well as flashing speed limit signs for during school hour times. This need was identified. So with a lot of these programs, we've done the parent surveys, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And those parent surveys kind of help identify some of the signage need, talking about school zone signage and rectangular rapid flashing beacons. Those were brought up in the parent surveys and identified. The school principals as well helped identify some of those needs and solutions. And then our multimodal transportation plan. So I know Corey highlighted the Albuquerque Vision Zero. So what we have in Durango is we have a multimodal transportation plan, which was created in 2012 with a lot of community input. Was updated in 2016 and is actually being updated again to create more of an action plan. But with that plan, we have a lot of infrastructure projects identified as well as other programming, but the signage and some of the routes were identified in the multimodal transportation plan, which then helped prioritize the project. So again, we had a Safe Routes to School infrastructure grant with the matching funds from the 2015 half-cent sales and use tax, which Kathy and the Multimodal Advisory Board were key on making sure that funding was prioritized. Kathy, do you have anything on that project that you wanted to highlight?
No, but I will say there was a lot of education for the non-infrastructure, right? We did a lot of front loading with our students through the health curriculum, as well as to the parents. And I'll say post-pandemic, it's been kind of a rough restart, but really continuing the sustainability of that messaging and identification of those signage and what the expectation is around those schools. It's been extremely helpful. So yeah, it's been a great project, but don't forget about the educational piece to the parents, the families, and the community and staff.
So this is kind of a more unique project. And, you know, I wanted to highlight this project since it's a bit different than the typical Safe Routes to School, which I feel like the last project kind of highlighted. I've seen a lot of presentations, you know, where folks had Safe Routes to School funding and, you know, kind of went through those. But this one is, again, a little more unique. It involved, there is a charter middle school kind of nearby this location, but this, as you see in the picture, is US Highway 550. So this is the main highway that goes through and bisects the city of Durango. And, you know, it's 5 lanes with a twiddle or center left turn lane. And you know, it presents a lot of, inhibits safe crossing for the most part. So the middle school is on this side, and we know a lot of students come from the east side and then cross over to get to the west side to either go to this middle school that we were specifically kind of partnering with on this project, as well as some of the other schools. And so in this section, there is a long area where we do not have any traffic signals, and there's not really a great safe place to cross. So the city worked with CDOT as well as the Business Improvement District and the charter school to apply for a MMOF grant, which was the main impetus for this project. But this was also something that was identified in a North Main corridor plan, as well as the multimodal transportation plan. So, I mean, this project had been identified for a while, and then the opportunity came up with this grant. And we actually didn't end up using these funds on this project. CDOT Region 5 ended up fitting the bill for most of this project. The city contributed some. But this is just kind of one of those unique projects where the Business Improvement District was heavily involved with the outreach for the community to kind of get feedback as far as this crossing and the location. We ended up going with a mid-block, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon with a pedestrian refuge island to service that safety. And also there's 2 transit stops in the middle there. So it kind of benefits a lot of needs. Again, going back to Kathy's point earlier, this project was a unique one, but at the same time, it benefits a lot of folks in the community, as well as the middle school that's kind of near there. So bike racks, this is another interesting partnership that is more recent. So in Colorado, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment had a quick win grant opportunity that came about this past year. And the city had been working with a member in our Rotary Club had brought up a bike parking survey that they had done a while back, and, you know, had sent it to the city, and which was amazing because, you know, as far as staff capacity goes, we don't have the capacity to go out and do something like a bike parking survey around town. But the survey was very comprehensive, and it really started conversations about our infrastructure and, you know, on the private side, and how a lot of facilities, including schools, parks, and then businesses, you know, don't always, I mean, Kathy can attest that a lot of our schools, the bike racks are just overwhelmed and they're full, and they're also a lot of the older schoolyard racks, which can be a little bit difficult for some students to get their bikes on, and especially with the new boom in e-bikes can especially be hard to use. And so we ended up working with the Rotary Club for a grant. We're awarded the grant, and it funded 28 bike racks, which 12 of them went to the Rotary Club's program, where they're working with local businesses to install bike racks at their facilities. But then 10 went to city parks, and then 6 went to Durango High School. So basically, Kathy Morris kind of heard about this program, reached out, and we started talking. We're like, yeah, this is a great opportunity to get 6 new bike racks at the high school. And so it ended up being an awesome project, and we're very much looking forward to continuing this type of project with both the Rotary Club and the high school. And, you know, it was just kind of one of those unique opportunities that popped up that now I think is really promoting moving forward with more projects like this this year. Kathy, did you have anything you wanted to add to that one? Or?
Yeah, this was great. I can't tell you, we were seeing kids, chain their bikes to all our trees and, you know, doorways, or even bringing them into the school. So we recognized pretty early on that that was an issue. We also have a lot of kids who scooter and skateboard. So we've, put some things outside that they can lock them up in. But the bike racks, I'm going to tell you, they're full at all our in-town schools most of the time. And it's not just kids, it's our staff as well. So I'm super excited the fact that we've got staff that are now using the, multimodal ways of getting, it's part of our wellness program too, but it really encourages it when they know they have a place that they can park and secure their bike or whatever mode of transportation they have. So it's been great. Yeah.
So the last thing I wanted to highlight were walk audits. And so this one, kind of builds off of that US Highway 550 mid-block crossing that I brought up a little bit earlier, but we partnered with the charter school to conduct a walk audit this past fall. And so kind of one of the things we really wanted to look at was we've had a lot of folks, a lot of parents from that school specifically reach out to us and talk about, the issues with getting to that school. And so they had brought up a lot of these concerns, and I worked with the principal at that charter school to set up a walk audit. And basically what we did is we created a very customized, personalized form, walk audit form, which we pulled from the AARP and the Safe Routes to School partnership materials, which was really helpful to have that. And then worked with the principal to set up a student leadership team and times to get out there. And so we picked two main routes to the school. I emailed back and forth with the principal to kind of discuss those routes that should really be analyzed and audited. So we had two main routes, and one of the routes included that new crossing of Highway 550. And so took two teams. I led one team, and then a teacher, those 28 students led the other team. And so we split up, walked around. We had safety vests for everybody, had clipboards and pens, and, just walked around. I kind of did a briefing beforehand to, point out what we were looking at, but also the forms, kind of lend themselves in there. It's great for about middle school age students. It's fairly simple as far as what we're asking for, but, I think a lot of the kids seemed very enthusiastic, and, their input was great. They were like, yeah, this is a terrifying road. There's a lot of cars going super fast. Nobody ever looks at us. So they were able to provide that really good feedback that, sometimes I think as adults, we don't think about because we're, for whatever reason, either we're a little bit taller and we can see farther, or we're just more used to it and desensitized a little bit. But they provided some great feedback during that. And that data that we pulled from that will be used for quick build opportunities and Safe Routes to School maps, and then hopefully future grant opportunities as well. So, Kathy has kind of brought up what COVID has done as far as these programs. So, our Safe Routes to School programs were paused during the height of the pandemic. We actually got the latest non-infrastructure grant we were awarded in 2019. And unfortunately, right after that, we had some turnover in the city staff. And so then I came on, but then it was the height of COVID and we weren't really doing much. And Durango 9R schools were actually at home at that time, and we're not in person yet. And then as they've kind of slowly come back, we've been trying to navigate how to re-energize and get the program really started back up. And, that's been due to, it sounds like, Corey touched on it, and, I'm sure we've all read about it in the news, but there's been a lot of turnover and vacancies at schools, and that hasn't, Durango hasn't dodged that at all, as well as city. So, it's been a little slow reinstating some of these programs, but we're starting to get things going again. And some partnerships that were existent in the past aren't anymore. But I think one big thing is, having Kathy on the multimodal advisory board is helpful because we're always able to connect. We see her once a month and we talk to her fairly frequently, which has been helpful. But then also having our PD with their program at the schools, being able to reach out to them and say, hey, since they're school resource officers, they have a lot of contacts, they know who's there, they know what's going on. So we've been able to reach out to them over the past few months and say, hey, we're trying to get everything going again, can you help out as well? So that's been key. And then, as far as Durango Safe Routes to School moving forward, kind of one of the big conversations has been, coming up with funding sources that are more sustainable outside of grants, and not just always depending on that next grant cycle, and having to make sure that we meet all the grant deadlines, but also just being able to have a consistency with the program. We also want to expand the program to year round and not just have like certain times, but have it more every year. People know what to expect. There's that consistency and more sustainability with the program, and also help establish the program at the middle schools and high schools. We know now that a lot of that funding can go to high schools now, which it wasn't able to in the past, but we've been trying to think of more unique ways to get middle school aged as well as high school age students engaged. And so that's something that we will be working on in the near future. Fortunately, the multimodal division for the city of Durango has recently expanded, which has given us a lot more capacity. And yeah, just continually working on our partnerships in the community so that while the city, does take a lead a lot on these projects, it's nice to have the backing of a lot of the partnerships throughout the community and organizations. Unfortunately, at Durango, we have some great community organizations that have been here for a long time and do really help out a lot. So I think just fostering those continually and just really creating that stronger bond in our community for Safe Routes to School programs specifically is one aspect that we hope to do in the future. But with that, I appreciate everybody's time. I've put my contact information up there if anybody would like to reach out. Yeah, we really appreciate this opportunity and hope everybody gains something from our presentation.
Thanks so much, Devin and Kathy. This was really, helpful, and just again, nice to feature another community in Colorado. A smaller community. We're always asking, people are always asking for examples of what Safe Routes to School looks like, in rural communities and in small communities. So I really appreciate you all, taking the time and sharing your, sharing your perspective. So I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So I saw a few questions in the Q&A box. I saw one asking if you would be willing to share the walk audit form that you were talking about that you created for the middle school program.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to.
Okay, yeah, if you email it to me, then I'll send it out in my follow-up email to everybody. So yes, the walk audit form it's coming. We had a bunch of questions about that. Let's see. There's a question about how challenging has it been to address Safe Routes to School infrastructure improvements on a state highway? I'm sure that could be a whole other webinar
Yeah,
presentation.
and thank you for bringing that. So, fortunately, we have a great relationship with CDOT Region 5, which I think is key. We've been talking this whole time about partnerships, and I think that's one crucial partnership that Durango has really benefited from, is we have a great relationship with the engineers at CDOT and a lot of the folks we work with over there. And fortunately, again, Durango is a small community, so a lot of these people who work for CDOT live in town, and their kids go to some of these schools, and we know them all on a personal level. And I think that it's been key to have advocates for a lot of these projects within that CDOT region office. So we've been able to work with them, and I think we kind of all come to the table and discuss and have a lot of mutual respect for each other, and I think that's a big part of it. And slowly we have a new project that's actually coming online that we worked with CDOT on and that we got funding for, and that's to update our transit stops along the highway. And that project is going to update curb ramps as well as the sidewalks, because we do have a lot of students that use our transit service. And then, like we said, the high school is right on that highway system, as well as some of our other schools are just right off of it. So even those sidewalk improvements that we'll be achieving with this project will be beneficial to a lot of our schools. So yeah, again, I think it's really been a large part about that relationship with the region office here. I don't know if Kathy has any more on that, but yeah.
You said it perfectly. Yep.
We had another question about if you've made any changes to make walking or biking easier on snow-covered streets and sidewalks. You mentioned, the snow that you all get in Durango. So any, safe routes projects that are kind of geared towards snowy weather, snowy conditions?
We haven't necessarily had any, I mean, when we do design projects, we do try to think about that. Whether that's making sure that we have that landscape strip in there for snow removal that can be packed on there. But that's been a huge conversation right now with our multimodal advisory board, as well as just in the community. We've been talking a lot about maintenance, and with our plan update right now, we're hoping to come up with some great solutions and ideas. But unfortunately, at this point, we haven't had any projects that were necessarily directed solely at like things like winter maintenance. But yeah, I think just right now with design, we typically try to think of winter maintenance when we're going through doing a design project. Where's that snow going to go that's getting plowed? How easy is it going to be to clear the sidewalk or potential side path? And those kind of things. And, like really working with the businesses. So on, specifically, I'll call out US Highway 550, we've been working with our business improvement district and just having conversations about snow removal and maintenance on that corridor section specifically, since that, there's a lot of businesses on there, and, making sure that sidewalks are cleared. So yeah, just lots of conversations more is what that's been looking like right now.
Got it. And I have a final question for Kathy. So for somebody who might not have had a lot of success reaching out to their school district or working with their school district, do you have any, kind of like, top 3 tips or words of encouragement to help spark these types of partnerships for people who might be getting into this for the first time or trying to restart partnerships with their school district?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think show up when they're having an event, talk to the superintendent of the schools and the principals. The relationships really go a long way, especially when you're faced with some challenges such as, ice and snowy roads, but also just show up, find out who the support services are coming in from the city, like the school resource officers. I can't tell you how valuable that's been. And then offer any information to help them with their students understanding crossing walks, what is a crossing guard's duty. They can start really there on some real basic. Ask them what their health curriculum is. How can you help with navigating with kids navigating to and from school? Even asking, who's walking to school? How's your bus transportation department operating? Those things can be a nice way to segue into and perhaps even join if they have a safety team, which some of these small districts do, and some of them don't. But just showing up, introducing yourself, showing them the interest, and have something in hand, like a business card or something about safe routes to school.
Awesome. Yeah, kind of that let me help you mentality.
It's all about our kids. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Devin and Kathy. Really appreciate you all taking the time to share today and give like lots of examples of the partnerships that are happening in Durango, both school district wise and also these other creative partnerships with, the BID and Rotary Club and medical centers and the doctor's offices. I think that, you kind of give a lot of examples of different partnership opportunities. And again, like those of you in small towns and small communities, like, for some of you that might, even be a bit easier to develop some of these connections. You're not dealing with like, a huge district. So yeah, thanks for pointing out some of those benefits too. And just to wrap up today, so like I mentioned, I'll be sending out a recording of the webinar along with presentation slides, follow-up materials. Look at that walk audit form from Devin, and any of the resources that were dropped in the chat. So take a look out for that. We'll also be sending out a survey. And just a few upcoming Safe Routes to School events to keep in mind. We will have another webinar next Wednesday, March 15th, as a part of our Walk, Ride, and Roll webinar series. We'll be talking about arrival and dismissal procedures and figuring out, some systems that work for everybody. So if you haven't signed up for that, we'll also send out the link to that webinar registration. We'll also have one of our open Zoom Safe Route to School networking sessions. We've done these in the past, just, hop on Zoom, get on some breakout groups and chat amongst ourselves about all things Safe Routes to School related. So we'll have one coming up in April 19th. So keep an eye out for that registration link as well, as, we get a chance to kind of, gather virtually and see what's happening in our Safe Routes to School world. And then our next Colorado Safe Route to School webinar series will be on Tuesday, April 25th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And we're going to keep the school theme going, but age up a little bit and talk about how we can partner with colleges and universities and other academic institutions around Safe Routes to School projects. So we're really excited about, exploring what those, partnerships with college and university communities looks like. So a link will be coming out for that as well. So with that, I will bid you all a great morning, if it's still morning for anybody, or afternoon. Again, thanks so much for being here. Thank you again to Devin and Kathy for sharing your expertise and experience. Really appreciate hearing about all the great things happening in Durango. And keep an eye out for a follow-up email from me, and we will hopefully see you all next time. Have a good one, everybody.